Hello, everyone. Welcome to an Inside the Birds TV with Adam Caplan and Geoff Mosher. And happy Father's Day out there to all the fathers. This is not an emergency ITB TV, Adam, but obviously the Eagles made a signing. We wanted to discuss the signing, the safety. I'm going to butcher this name already, right? It's an easy name. Jaquiski Tartt. We'll talk about that. We wanted to do this really because our next podcast is going to be in the first part of our roster review. Monday is going to be on offense, and we didn't want to just kind of shoehorn the Jaquiski Tartt signing into a podcast that's mostly going to be about offensive players. So, listen, you and I both said that we thought before camp or going into camp or by sometime in camp, the Eagles would add a veteran safety to round out a really thin position group that they had previously. And so they bring in Jaquiski Tartt. And if you look at the resume, Adam, I mean, there was a time, I would say, I remember from 2015, 16, 17, when they moved on from Chip Kelly and then Robert Saleh took over that defense, where he was regarded as a really good player, a good safety. But obviously, a couple of years later here, when you're a free agent this late in the game, what the league is telling you is that you're not the same player that you were. But still, this is a guy who adds some good veteran experience and depth.
Yeah, he's by far the best free agency safety out there. I know you're right. He is 30. There's a reason why he's out there. That's the exact reason we were told. It's strictly because of his injury history. 31 games missed over the last 5 seasons when he became a full-time starter. He's an intimidator. He's long. And the crazy thing is, I'm sure this had nothing to do with it, but he was a teammate of James Bradbury at Stanford.
Oh yeah, how about that? I forgot about that.
They have the same agent. I mean, they don't have the same agent. I'm sorry, but Tartt's agent has other safeties, like Tashawn Gibson, who's also out there. But Tartt is a player. He's just really been banged up. That's the thing. If he had been 25, 26, been a free agent, he probably would have been signed by now. But when you're 30, you've missed 31 games. The big one in the last 2 years was a severe turf toe injury. Caused him to miss a lot of time 2 years ago, a lot of training camp last season. But the guy's a good football player. He's not going to get you interceptions. He's mostly a strong safety. He's played free earlier in his career, but he's a strong safety by trade. And the other thing that he gives you, which the Eagles haven't played a lot of, if at all, we'll learn more for Thursday's show, but they haven't done a lot of big nickel. So you can do that with him. By the way, big nickel is not about the size. It gives you the ability to play 3 safeties. So there's a misnomer about that.
Right. I was thinking you could also probably play some variation of maybe a big dime where you could have 3 corners and 3 safeties on the field. So that was, although maybe some people refer to that as big nickel, but I sometimes think of that as using a safety in the slot, but you could still have Avonte Maddox out there and bring in Tartt if you're kind of pattern matching or mix and matching some back end stuff there, and have a bigger dime package where you have 3 safeties along with 3 cornerbacks. So it doesn't always have to be 4 and 2 or whatever the position is. You mentioned him being a good tackler. He's a big guy. He's also played in defenses that are similar to what we think Jonathan Gannon's going to do. He's played in a lot of cover 3. He's played in quarters. That time where he was really an on the rise safety, he excelled in playing in zone coverage, Adam, which is just yet another, I guess, clue or indication that if Jonathan Gannon is able to do everything he wants to do, we should be seeing a lot of zone. And whether he's a starter or a backup, I don't know. We'll get into that in a second. But he's still got more pieces to be able to play that kind of defense.
Yeah, look, he's a guy who's accomplished. He was a starter during the Super Bowl run in 2019 under Robert Saleh, as you mentioned, and he comes in as a backup, to be clear. Now, could he? We'll have to find out. One of the things we want to find out is if they're going to give him a chance to compete for a starting job here. Was he just really good insurance? Because this guy's been a long-term starter. We know about the injury history. But the guy's a good football player. It's I don't want to say it's a steal. There's a reason why he's out there, you just look at what he's done. I mean, this guy was a long-time starter, full-time starter for 5 years. Did start earlier before the 5-year run, but he was not a full-time starter then, where he's a part-time starter. But you look at his body of work, and it's pretty good. And it's the problem with the injury history. It's like everywhere: upper body, shoulder, forearm. Broke his forearm 1 year, I think.
Yeah.
He had severe turf toe a couple years ago. Shoulder. You're going to have this when you play the way that he does. It's just the way it is. But
Right.
let's put it this way: when's the last time they had an intimidator other than B-Doc in the secondary at safety?
Oh, I mean, it's been a while. I mean, Quentin Michael was a very good tackler. He was. That was kind of, he was more of a box safety than a deep safety. But yeah, it's been a long, long time. I mean, Malcolm Jenkins was a good tackler. He was a playmaker as
Oh
well.
yeah,
So I think that
sure.
probably took away
Yep.
the intimidator label, but he could really hit you. So he would come into
Yeah.
the box. Obviously, none of the guys they have right now are as talented as Malcolm Jenkins. But the question you brought up, and I think it's interesting, is that who does his skill set more comparable to that's currently on the Eagles? It's really more comparable to Anthony Harris because, as we've talked about, Marcus Epps is a guy who can turn and run a little bit. I mean, he's got good athleticism. He's more known as a guy who can run than hit. So if there were to be a change, or if they really liked what they saw from Tartt, I don't know that Marcus is the guy who comes off the field. It might be Anthony Harris. I think when Tartt signed, people said, "Oh, see, they were lying about Epps. It's going to be Tartt and Harris." And I don't know that that's to be true either. I agree with you. I think he's got to stay healthy. He's got to prove himself. He's got to come in and learn the defense and everything like that. But you know, I still think that this team likes Marcus Epps and sees him as a starter. And if Tartt plays well, then maybe it becomes a question of, well, how well is Anthony Harris playing? Because as you mentioned, outside of that 1 year where Anthony Harris had 6 interceptions, that's not really who he is. He's not a playmaker, and neither has Tartt been. They've both been just tacklers and steady Eddie type of guys who can do a variety of things, but they're not playmakers.
Yeah, Tartt is more of a physical safety, so
Right.
that means that would play. Not that I would say Harris is the most physical guy. And by the way, Harris played free and strong for the Vikings over the years, depending on the year,
Mm-hmm.
depending on the situation. But yeah, Harris could play, is sort of interchangeable. I don't think Tartt is. I know he played a little free much earlier in his career, but he's really strong safety, more of a box player, which is more where Harris is going to play. So yeah, we'll have more for this on Thursday show when we. Oh yeah, the Thursday show, where the Monday show is completely offense and roster intel breakdown, what it looks like and what we know more about OTAs. That Thursday shows the defensive side of that, and we'll have a little bit more on Tartt and where we think he's going to line up. And also the other thing is he does have a history of playing on special teams, so where he could certainly help them in coverage. So this is a good value signing. It's a 1-year deal. We'll get the contract breakdown for you by Thursday. But being that it's late, I do know that there were other teams involved in the spring. I know that there were some teams that checked in on him, but the fact that he didn't get a job before the draft was not surprising because of his injury history and his age.
Right.
It was believed this is probably going to be the case. And quite frankly, because the Eagles aren't great at safety, if I'm Tartt, I'd want to sign here. The Eagles, the roster's better. They have this team made the playoffs. But the real reasoning here is, who knows? He could wind up starting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a pathway there as long as he stays healthy and plays well. So let's round this out by looking at the safety picture. We've got Anthony Harris, we have Marcus Epps, now we have Jaquiski Tartt, and then Kavon Wallace kind of goes down the pecking order again. He really has to prove himself, and he may actually be staring at a job competition here to make the 53. Jared Maiden is fifth, and Andre Chachere is there too, and those two guys are really important special teamers. So if you're going to make the Eagles as a backup safety, you're going, just like wide receiver, you're going to have to excel on special teams. So this is a very, very, very significant and important camp coming up for Kavon Wallace. He absolutely has to make a jump and prove that he belongs to be on the 53. If not on the defense, then certainly on special teams. And I would say it's already an uphill battle because Chachere is a really good special teamer, and Jared Maiden, they've talked about his special teams acumen as well. And then you brought in, as you mentioned, Tartt, who can play on special teams. I don't know if they'll want him to do that because of his injury history, but if he makes the team, he'll probably have to. And as you've said, he's pretty good at that too.
Yeah, so you're right. Wallace right now theoretically will be their fourth safety at best. Chachere is going to be on the team. They gave him a little bit of, not that guaranteed money is going to keep you on the roster, but they did give him a little bit of guaranteed money in his new deal.
Right.
And he's such a good special teams player. You have to think he's going to make it. And he got reps, OTAs at safety. Yeah, Kevon Wallace. Yeah, right now he enters the third year of his four-year deal. And Tartt's an established starter in this league. So yeah, you can't keep 5 safeties. That's just, I can't imagine they're going to keep 5. So it's going to be fascinating to see how they're going to break this thing down in training camp. And look, competition's good for everybody. And Wallace can learn from Tartt. Wallace is more of a box player anyway. So I'm interested to see if Gannon now, because he's got Tartt in the mix, does he do some different things, as you were alluding to earlier, that he wasn't able to do last season?
All right. Yes, definitely. So let's finish with this. How difficult do you think it will be for the fans of the Philadelphia Eagles who call up sports talk radio or just have discussions at the bar to pronounce this man's name correct? I mean, we've had Asante Samuels, Alshon Jeffries. I mean, and those are relatively easy names to really pronounce.
Chase Daniels.
Compared to Jaquiski Tartt. Yeah, Chase Daniel, right? Oh, no, Chase Daniels, right? That was the butchering of it.
Yeah,
so,
I did. I've screwed it up. Chase actually called me on the I don't know how the hell. Maybe it was Twitter because he was following me. I think I sometime I didn't correct because you don't have an edit button on Twitter. I said Chase Daniels. I mean, come on. Yeah. Oh, Jaquiski is what I didn't know in 2015. How unless you got the pronunciation guide from the NFL.
Yeah.
You would. It looks like Jaquiski, but it's fact. His nickname is Kwaski.
Kwaski.
Yeah, a little
All
number
right,
4.
good. Nice.
Kwaski, we're told, is his nickname.
Kwaski. All right, I'm gonna have to get used to that one. Look, we'll have more on the whole defensive side of the ball on Thursday morning when we do our roster review that involves contract information, pecking order on the depth chart, everything, future, present. We'll cover that, and of course, Monday, as I mentioned, is going to be our offensive roster review, where we'll have all that information for the offensive players. That'll be it for this edition of Inside the Birds TV. Hope everybody continue to have a good Father's Day and a good rest of your week. And we will catch you on the next Inside the Birds. Thanks, everybody.